Hi, I'm Alani Gamble. I'm the director of the MUM Hawaii semester program, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the parts and something about the wholeness of the fall 2016 program launch for the Hawaii semester. This is our cohort, a group of 9 hand-selected students who went out with me to help design and develop the program. We got to be known as the Hawaiiowans, and this is also our on the bottom right is our administrator Cheryl Michi, and in the middle is our TM instructor Anjali. And so this is we had quite a lot of adventures around the island. We ran into former MUM students and graduates of MUM. Here's one in Pohaha. This is Jake and his girlfriend, who are both graduates of the Sustainable Living Program at MUM. They run a successful farm on Oahu where they grow medicinal herbs, make salves and tinctures, and they also operate a seed company and a vegetable production operation. And this is a booth we had at a festival. You can see people doing yoga in the background, where we connected up with Jake and his girlfriend. This is Michael and Jenica and Don and Lulu from British Columbia. They're wealthy donors to the TM movement who came and visited us at Stuart's suggestion and were very impressed with the program we have going on. This is Devin Allman, also from Canada, who I'm looking to hire as the co-faculty and co-developer of the Hawaii semester. He came and spent a few days with us, and I was very impressed. Students were very impressed with his work, and he's willing to come on at a very reasonable rate. We had other guests. This is John Lippman. As you may know, this is you can get a feel for our campus. Our campus is 2,500 acres that goes from the ocean to the mountains. It's a complete ancient Hawaiian village settlement, and this looks down into a valley that's about 400 feet deep to the bottom of it, and it's from a platform that used to be operated by a zipline company. Here's some of the promotional materials we put together. The idea here is you're interested in sustainability, meditation, indigenous wisdom, permaculture, organic local food, and holistic health, and interested in exploring how your interests in sustainability, social justice, and equity movements all relate. Want to live what you'll learn. You'll get a hands-on experience in personal community scale sustainable living here at the and so that was kind of our idea going in. It's changed somewhat, and I'll tell you about that as we go through. Some promotional materials for the permaculture course, and this is our little booth that we had at the Aina festival just down the street from our campus. We had formal classroom facilities, as you can see here at the Kohala Institute Grace Center. A $10 million facility is renovated for us. Here's Vanessa giving a presentation on nonviolent communication. You can see our course overview chart in the background and another course overview chart under below. We also had professors from MUM call in. Here's another one of our classrooms with Ninka Passe calling in from Fairfield. She did a couple of sessions every week, at least one session every week. Many weeks it was 2, on a program called The Artist's Way. That was the kind of writing element. And she also was available to help students with drafts on papers and things like that. We also had informal classrooms. This is us outside doing a reflection session and kind of thinking about the wholeness of the various parts that we had experienced that week. Give you a little bit of an overview just on where our program is located. These are the Hawaiian Islands. Big Island's the newest island. Kauai's the oldest island. This is Oahu. Big Island could fit all the other Hawaiian islands on it. Only has about 190,000 people, whereas Oahu, is much smaller, has 1 million people. So it's rural, like rural Iowa. We're located on the northern tip here. The Big Island's divided into districts. The district we're in is called Kohala. The town we're in is called Kapa'au, and it's on this kind of northeast facing slope, and we can look out over to Maui on good days. This is a geography of the Big Island. It has 2 15,000-foot high volcanoes, mountains on it. This is North Kohala where we're located, and you can see it's quite a varied landscape in geology. very active volcanoes in this area that are been active for the last 20 years, most active volcanoes on the planet. This is the view of the Pololu Valley and other valleys that is just 5 miles from our campus. Rainbows, very common in Hawaii, reminds you of the magic, beauty, and grace that surrounds us everywhere all the time, but it's just so apparent in Hawaii. We had 2 vehicles that we rented for the program, these 2 minivans. They're parked in the parking lot of the new public library in the community in Kapaa where we were located, which is, as you can see, is powered by solar. It's got wind turbines that are off this picture, and also rain collection. So it's a very interesting sustainable building and a brand new library facility, and they welcomed us to use their library. The trunk of our car was often filled with things like this as we travel around the island, farmers markets, and just generous people donating us things like coconuts and plants to try and plants to propagate. I want to talk a little bit about our host, Kohala Institute. The director of the Kohala Institute is a woman named Noa Lincoln, and she is just an amazing asset for our program. She has a law degree, and she practiced law for a number of years, both in the military, in the JAG Corps, and also as a public defender. And then she spent at least 10 years as the chief aide for the senior senator from Hawaii, Akea. And he is of Native Hawaiian descent, as is Noe. Noe's related to half the people on the island. And she has gotten, and when she was the senior aide to the senior senator from Hawaii, Senator Akea, she was working on a daily basis with people like Senator Hillary Clinton, Senator Barack Obama, Senator John McCain. And so she has this incredible network of connections. When she left D.C., she came back to Hawaii to raise her children, and she worked for a wind farm company, and then she started a nonprofit that did farmer training programs for Native Hawaiian veterans. And so very interesting, very powerful woman who's very well connected and has done an amazing job fundraising and putting together projects for Kohala Institute. We're sitting in a $10 million renovation set of buildings that were renovated, that were historic buildings from the 1800s that were on the property. Here's another one of the buildings on the property. And again, the renovations are still continuing. So that's a little bit of the background of where we are. One of the things that surprised me is how long it took people to settle in and sort of decompress and sort of decolonize in a way from the mainland and from their conventional life. People were scared of nature when we first got there. They wouldn't go out. They were afraid that they would get attacked by wild pigs or bitten by sharks in the ocean. So then they had a hard time integrating local foods into their diet, the foods that they weren't familiar with. Much more difficult than I imagined a group of sustainable living students might have. So I'll talk a little bit more about that and how transformative those kinds of experiences were, being in nature and learning to trust and respect wildness, and give it the same kind of consideration you might give when you are walking beside a highway and you have, multi-ton metal machines, vehicles that are coming by that might be driven by somebody who's impaired, who could instantly kill you, but you take that as a calculated risk. And so we had those kind of discussions quite often. This was a team of advisors that I'd put together for the program before I went out and on some of my trips there when I was working with Stuart. This is Ramdas, who's director of the Religious Studies program at the University of Hawaii in Manoa, on Oahu. He was a contact from Bill Goldstein. This is Ashley Lukens. She is director for the Center for Food Safety in Hawaii, and also a PhD professor of political science. This is Art Art Watley, who developed a very successful global sustainable leadership master's degree at Hawaii Pacific University, and this is one of his students who's had quite a lot of success, and Art thought he could be helpful in the project. I originally thought I was going to be leaning on these guys a lot, but I had so many resources come forward to me in Hawaii, on the Big Island, that I actually never brought them over, and I'll be looking to integrate them and update them on the progress of the project. I'm going to introduce you to a few of the people who worked with us on the project. This is Alohalani Brown, a PhD from the Religious Studies Department at the University of Hawaii, Manoa on Oahu. She happens to live on the Big Island, although she works in Oahu. And she is a native Hawaiian practitioner. Her specialty is Hawaiian religion in her academic specialty. And she agreed to take us around and introduce us to sacred sites and the different kind of energies in nature that are lively on the Big Island. And here she was introducing us to one of the major influences in Hawaiian culture on the Big Island, Pele, the goddess Pele. This was at Volcanoes National Park, and we would often tour and visit with people like Alohalani Brown and bring our lunch, share our lunch with them, and talk story. So this is this is Pele, and this is the volcano, and we were watching it while Alohalani Brown was telling us stories of what it means and the kind of cultural and spiritual significance of this creative energy, this major creative force on. And then that was up in the mountain. Now then we went another day. We went down to the ocean and looked where Pele is coming, and this creative force is creating new land. And you have to go about 4 miles. There's no road to get to where the lava is flowing into the ocean. So we rented bikes and we drove for 4 miles, and this is what we found in the evening. And it was just magical to sit there and meditate around this creative energy and this flow from the volcano, which looks violent but was very silent, very beautiful, very profound. Another one of our colleagues that we developed was Kaliko Beamer, and he's with the University of Hawaii Hilo Hawaiian Studies program, and he's a haole, meaning somebody not of Hawaiian ancestry, a white guy like us, and but he was adopted into a very prominent Hawaiian musical and cultural family called the Beamers. Hanai, the kind of adoption is called Hanai, and it's a very intensive kind of adoption. And he's become a world leader in teaching Hawaiian language. And he's one of the 8 people who decide new words like hard drive and USB, what are they going to call them in Hawaiian? And he became our Hawaiian language teacher. And this is the Hawaiian Studies building, $25 million building at the University of Hawaii. And it's a living laboratory for Hawaiian studies, like the Sustainable Living Center in Fairfield is for sustainability. And Kaliko took us around, showed us this is the Pico, which is the central silent core of a building, which is like the Brahmastan. Hawaiians have a conception like that. Then he was telling us a little bit of stories about the development of Hawaiian studies and Hawaiian language, people who kept Hawaiian language alive. And then we also connected up and we explored the various plants and that were important in Hawaiian culture, and some plants that are still important today and are undergoing a renaissance. One of those is breadfruit, or ulu as it's called in Hawaiian. It's a productive, protein-rich breadfruit, and it could really revolutionize food production in the tropics. This is Dr. Noa Lincoln. He's a native Hawaiian who went to the King Kamehameha schools, which is a very well endowed. I think it's got about a $10 billion endowment. Private school for native Hawaiians. Then he went to Stanford for his PhD, and he's back. His specialty is indigenous agricultural systems, particularly Hawaiian indigenous agricultural systems, and he's working on the redevelopment of an exploration of the use of breadfruit. And this is a breadfruit test orchard. Noah planted 12 of these around the island with about 40 breadfruit trees in each one, about 10 or 12 different varieties. And we helped him plant the breadfruit test orchard at the Kohala Institute. This is Tara digging a hole for breadfruit. This is what breadfruit looks like. When it's at one stage of ripeness, it's a starchy vegetable like a potato. So it's a major starch crop like potatoes or rice or wheat, and it can be used. It has a similar flavor for like potatoes. In other words, you can make French fries with it. But when it's ripe, it's very ripe. It's a sweet fruit, and you can use it for desserts. In fact, it kind of there's ulu fries, breadfruit fries. And when it's ripe, it just makes it a batter all by itself. You don't have to add flour or anything else, and you can make delicious pancakes with it. This is Sandalwood Mark. The slopes of the mountains in Hawaii used to be covered with sandalwood trees. And Sandalwood Mark, for the last 25, 30 years, has planted 400,000 sandalwood trees. And so we work with him and learned about this is us meditating in an ancient sandalwood forest at about 9,000 feet on the slopes of the sacred mountain Mauna Kea. And we figured out how many sandalwood trees would have to plant to offset our carbon footprint for all the activities, flying and driving around for our program. And we planted sandalwood trees with Sandalwood Mark to offset our carbon footprint. And there's a sandalwood seedling right there. Another major connection we had, and again, I was, I'm going to sound like I'm bragging, but the program was spectacularly successful. We were able to make connections. Connections fell into our laps that I thought would take years to develop, and many of those connections were with leaders in the Renaissance in Hawaiian culture, deep knowledge and understanding of Hawaiian culture. And one of them is Jerry Konanui. Jerry is the Vandana Shiva of Hawaii. He works principally with 3 different crops: kava or ava, taro, and sweet potatoes. Taro, again, is a major starch crop for Polynesians and Southeast Asians. And Jerry has been active in the Renaissance in understanding of traditional Hawaiian agricultural practices, and updating them for modern times. Jerry came over and spent 2 days with us, talking story and taking us through the life cycle of the kava plant. We went up and harvested kava. We then you use the root. We dug it out of the ground, processed it, made it into a drink, and mixed it with coconut water, and then enjoyed it with Jerry. And Jerry told us many, many stories about growing up with a grandmother who spoke only Hawaiian, and learning about so many different aspects of the deep, deep observation, deep, deep connectedness that Hawaiians have with the land, with the ocean, with the mountains, with each other, with all the plants and animals, and with their own deep inner being. And this was just a priceless opportunity to spend time with really a cultural hero in Hawaii. That's my thesis. And then after we processed the kava, and kava is a drink that is traditionally used all throughout Polynesia, a little bit like coffee, except that instead of giving you an edge, it makes you calm, but it makes your mind really clear. It makes you clear and calm and alert, so that when you have conversations, have to have important conversations in a community, then oftentimes that was a ceremonial use of kava. But it's just a drink that was enjoyed by everybody all throughout Polynesia. And we had about 150 pieces of propagation material for kava that we collected when we were processing the kava. And we planted it, and it turns out that kava is in huge demand, huge renaissance in the use of kava. and that a pound of kava root is worth about $20 or $30, and each plant will give you 20 to 50 pounds. And so we have 150 seedlings started, and Jerry has said that we will have no problem. He'll be able to sell all of the kava that we could possibly produce. So we plan on, it's about a 3-year process to grow kava. We plan on growing it and then every year harvesting it. Students, the next group of students will harvest it, and then that will be money that they can use for uh, parts of the program that aren't funded by the university. Another amazing connection that we had was with John and Hope Keawe. John is a native Hawaiian, a Grammy award-winning slack key guitar artist, and music is very central in Hawaiian culture and was very central in the resistance to the overthrow of the Hawaiian government by the U.S. government and to the colonization process and the resistance to the colonization process by Hawaiians. And so learning about Hawaiian music was a big part of what we did. Slack key guitar comes from the Spanish, comes through the Spanish cowboys that were brought over to manage cattle in the late 1800s, and they brought with them guitars, and then Hawaiians, guitar is not a traditional Hawaiian instrument, but Hawaiians picked up the guitar and tuned it differently. They made the strings looser and made an open tuning and have developed beautiful, beautiful music. And so John would tell us stories about Hawaiian music and then show us how to play. And so here's John. Oftentimes Hawaiian music will give reverence to a beautiful area or to the energy and the devas of that beautiful area. And this is a song about the waterfall called Hi'ilave in Waipio Valley. So that was John showing us how to play that song and telling us the story, the meaning and significance of that story in Hawaiian culture. This is a little party we had at the end of our program where we were all playing songs we had learned from John and doing hula that we learned from his wife, Hope. And Hope is a Hula Kumu, or teacher, who also taught beginning ukulele. And she's a well-known hula teacher, well-loved and respected. And everybody was kind of shocked and surprised that Hope and John agreed to work with us. This is Hope doing hula. And hula's has elements of it that are like a yagya. It's done to have a particular influence on the environment. It's done to respect the energies, the devas of a particular part of the area of the island. It's done to tell the story of the myths and legends and other elements of Hawaiian life. And here's us learning. Whoops, let's see if we can get that to go. It doesn't want to run, but you can see this is Hope teaching us. Anyway, there you can see our hula lessons. Another transformational aspect of the program. But before I get into this, I want to say that one of my thesis, based on my experience this fall with the program, is that Hawaiians had a metaphysics and had deep cultural values that looked at everything as related to them. When they tell their genealogy, it's not just about the people they're related to in the past, but it's also about the mountains and the animals and the air and the ocean and everything in nature and how it's related to them. And then not only that, but how it emerges from their own inner being. They have cultural values of transcendence. And and then out of those cultural and spiritual values, they developed an agricultural system that was sustainable for thousands of years. They developed a conflict resolution and management system. They developed a a way of managing the natural resources of an area and sharing the natural resources of an area called the A'apua system. Um, uh, so when you look at that, the core thing, and this is, I think, why people were so excited about working with us, because we recognize this. The core thing wasn't the technologies and the agricultural systems they developed, but the spiritual values that guided the development of those systems and tempered the use of their technologies, very powerful technologies that they developed to be able to live on these remote islands in large numbers, on the order of 1,000,000 people. On the Big Island might have been 400,000 or 500,000 people, even though there's only about 190,000 people there now. So another aspect of the program that was transformational was the fact that everybody had to learn how to live and work together in very close quarters, essentially 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and figure out how to resolve the conflicts or how to resolve the disagreements that might arise. And we began to look at conflict not as something that was bad, but just something that was a natural result of the diversity of people that we had, and how could we work creatively with that. And so we brought in Tracy Matfin, who's the founder of Mauna Kea Community, intentional community there, a colleague of mine. She teaches permaculture also, but she's been trained in a variety of techniques for group process. One particular one that students took to called nonviolent communication. And so students learned these processes, practiced them, and then took them on as their own, and figured out ways in which they could, in processes that they underwent regularly to help resolve conflict and tension, and to help use that in productive ways. And I was just amazed to see that happen. And I think that was one of the most transformational things for all the students, because everybody had had problems working in groups in the past, and they were very grateful to learn these tools. This is one of our outdoor classrooms working with Tracy, learning about nonviolent communication. Here's some, we went to visit another amazing kind of weekly gathering that happens at a place called Uncle Robert's. And these were the rules there. No fighting, no outside dogs, no sitting on the tables, no using or selling any drugs of any kind, respect each other, respect the land. Not a bad place to start. And so we were able to, it was, I think, one of the most difficult things that students had ever done to live that way, but it was also one of the most rewarding things to be able to work with their fellow students and grow and evolve and develop. Another really powerful element of the program was connecting up with the Pacific Voyaging Society. This is the Renaissance in Hawaiian culture and language, having to do with being able to travel. This great adventure that Polynesians did started 3,000 years ago, and they were able to colonize an area that is larger than the landmass of all the continents of the world combined. And to by the time Europeans came, they had pretty much settled every part of that area that was possible for humans to settle, and they developed highly advanced technologies for voyaging, and highly advanced methods of navigation that relied on their deep understanding of nature, of the waves, the ocean, the land, the plants, the animals, and the cosmos, the stars. And about 600 years ago, Hawaiians stopped voyaging. I think, just like maybe we stopped going to the moon, the adventure had kind of worn off, and but they still had these cultural stories of voyaging. And in the Renaissance in Hawaiian culture that happened in the 70s, a group of Hawaiians went and found somebody named Mao in the South Pacific, who still knew how to do this kind of voyaging, and convinced him to come and train them in Hawaii on how to do this. And they built canoes, and they traveled to Tahiti, and then now they've traveled all around the world. There's a voyage going on right now, 2-year voyage, where there's a boat very similar to this. They call them canoes, with a crew of about 15 or 20, that is sailing around the world, going to the United Nations. telling the world, bringing the story of sustainability to the world, and finding stories of hope and courage and vision all around the world, around sustainability and around care of the earth and care of the oceans. And so we were able to meet with two people who had been trained by Mao and were masters at this traditional navigation. And they had been trained 30 years ago, and they were now teaching a new generation. So we got to meet the new generation. This canoe you see here has been to Tahiti, it's been to Japan, and now it was built 30 years ago, and they're renovating it now for another 30 years. So we were able to do service work with them and meet and talk about this really. They look at voyaging as a spiritual path. And again, it's another instance of, this deep connection to nature and to each other, and to their own inner being, that allowed them to do amazing things, but also tempered the way that they used that technology. Here's living legend Chad Paishon, one of the navigators trained by Mao. And this is a wooden canoe that they built. I don't have time to tell the story, but very interesting story about how this canoe was built. Their elders made them build this canoe out of wood before they built the one out of modern materials that you saw in the earlier image. And students kind of testing it out. Hopefully we'll be able to go to ride on this canoe. Everything's lashed together with ropes to make a more kind of resilient craft than one that was put together with rigid elements. The ropes allow the canoe to move. So, and then we worked with another nonprofit in Waipio Valley. Waipio Valley, one of the most incredibly beautiful places I've ever been anywhere, and it was a place that has deep significance in Hawaiian culture. It was a place where it was very fertile and productive valley. It's been we worked with a nonprofit that's renovating a village from the 800s, 800 AD, and restoring the ancient agricultural systems there. And this is Waipio down in the valley. It's an amazing feeling down in the valley. And this is Kulia, who is the director of the nonprofit Pohaha Ikalani. The sun breaks forth. It's really the light of being, or the light of pure intelligence, is what they mean by that. And so this is, we were down there planting breadfruit and clearing taro lois, taro agricultural production systems, and pulling this village out of the forest and helping Kulia with her project. We visited, people who are doing modern approaches to sustainability. This is Geoff and Lynn. They're not Native Hawaiians. They are doing homesteading and kind of personal self-sufficiency, and many people agreed this was the most beautiful farm they had ever visited. We learned how to make coffee and chocolate from the plant to the cup in the bar. This is Larry Sharkey, who has a chocolate and coffee operation, and we picked cacao. This is cacao, and saw how the beans were processed and then made into chocolate. Many other people we met with that I don't have time to talk about now. Went swimming with dolphins. I'll tell a quick story about swimming with dolphins, and this is this idea of the complexity of our connection to the other creatures on the earth. We had the good fortune to run into some dolphins when we were near the ocean. We went out and swam with them, and we had to swim quite a long ways. And on the way back, one of the students had such a powerful experience that he cried the whole way back into the shore, just because he was so moved by the experience. But I knew that there were problems with people and human dolphin interactions, and I asked him to do a report and look up the scientific research that had been done on the interaction between dolphins and people. And so and to make a long story short, there are almost no recreational interactions between dolphins and people that are good for the dolphins. And so he had to deal with this tension of this transformational experience he had by being connected with these beautiful creatures, and then the potential side effects of that. So that was a very interesting discussion, very interesting paper that he had written about that. Just a little bit of nature, that show you a little bit of nature there in Hawaii. This is Mauna Kea. There's a couple $1 billion worth of telescopes here, and we we were able to drive up to 10,000 feet. That's at 13,000 feet. We were able to drive up at 10,000 feet and look through, you know, not the huge billion-dollar telescopes, but very good telescopes, and look at the cosmos and learn about the cosmos from that. Many beautiful sunsets, many beautiful hikes. We saw this Waipio Valley turtles, the Hawaiian symbol for transcendence. Lava. Again, beautiful hikes. We also made a connection with somebody named Hap, who is a woodworker. He has a company called Heartwood Works, and he has been making beautiful tables out of local woods that he sells to wealthy people for $5,000 or $10,000. He's 70 years old, and he wants to teach, and so he embraced our group. We just met him at a kava bar in town, and he just embraced our group and took us into his shop, and we work with him a few days a week, in the mornings, in the evenings, or on the weekends, where he told us about, we talked to him about the philosophy of craft, the philosophy of building things by hand versus things that are built by machine, and learn practical skills. So here's those
plugs on the drill press, and then it's easier to saw them off, to set up a little zero tolerance slot there and saw them off, because then they have a flat top. And when you pound them in, these little buggers have a flat side after I saw it, and when Andrew finaled his cutting, it put a little bevel around them, so that helped to lead them in. And then we leave them proud, and then what I do, Jenna already picked the grain direction to go this way. You can see when it breaks off how.
But you get the idea that, you know, the students got really high level discussion about the philosophy of craft, and also high level instruction in actually building things with their hands, which was very transformational for many people, particularly Jenna. And Hap had a wealthy client who owned a building that wasn't being used in Kapa'au, and he talked her into donating it for creating a makerspace. And Jenna is now the director of the development of that makerspace. And and then some other maker activities we got involved in, with this idea of getting away from having your identity in society being as a consumer, to seeing it also being a creator. And we started some kitchen gardens just outside our kitchen at the Kohala Center. We had a TM retreat. Everybody was fantastically well received, because it was such an intensive experience, and everybody wants to have at least 3 days every month of the program from here on out. The continuity plan. There's been some concern at the university that we need more than just Lonnie Gamble, me, involved in this program. And so I have made a connection with Devin Allman, who's has an MBA and a PhD in education from Canada. His area of interest is integral theory, Ken Wilber and others, integral theory. And he is willing to come work for the program for $1,000 a month, a very reasonable fee. And because he's so excited about the potential, transformational potential of this program. And he's excited to learn TM. He's read before he taught for a few days. Before he taught, he read the Bhagavad Gita and the Science of Being, read some of Susie Dilbeck's papers, and integrated many elements of consciousness-based education into his program. And he's excited to learn more. He sees that as a great way of a great instance of integral education. We look at the super radiance numbers for the Big Island. All we need is 44 yogic flyers, 119 for all of Hawaii. And so I'm hoping, well, one day between the staff and the students of this program that we meet the super radiance number for Hawaii. This is Devin again. And one of his quotes from Parker Palmer, who's one of my favorite educational theorists, is, "Higher education looses upon the world too many people who are masters of external objective reality without the knowledge and skill to manipulate it." with the knowledge and skill to manipulate it, but who understand little or nothing about inner drives of their own behavior. We need to stop releasing our learners into the wild without systematically challenging them to take an inner as well as outer journey. Integrative education can help us do just that. And again, I think this is so coherent with the educational philosophy of MUM. Again, an outdoor classroom with Devin. This was at a remote beach park where we studied the history of Hawaiian settlement at this park, and we met a Hawaiian family here who's restoring the fish ponds. Hawaiians got so good at fish farming that they stopped fishing in the ocean many places, but those fish ancient fish farming facilities have fallen in disrepair. This one's being renovated. We were asked to help with the renovation, invited to help with the renovation, and it's going to be used to provide fish for the community over time. So I'm going to close up with a few student comments and interviews, and you can stop the discussion right here if you want. And this has been a long presentation, but I wanted to give you a feel for some of the things that we had done. And this is some comments from Vanessa on what the program meant for her.
Okay, Vanessa, so tell me a little bit about what was, you said this has kind of been a transformative experience. Tell me a little bit about how you were transformed and what were your peak experiences, just for a couple minutes.
Okay, I feel like I was transformed in probably one of the deepest levels I've been transformed. It hasn't just been like mentally or spiritually or physically, it's kind of been a combination of all three. And what I mean by that, it's like I feel like I'm eating really good food and I'm just out in nature so much that my connection to my own body is deepened, and I can feel when I'm doing something wrong to it quicker because I know the truth. My body knows the truth now. I feel like mentally, like I've kind of broken a lot of barriers, just kind of working and living with groups every day and doing things that are outside my comfort zone for the betterment of the whole group. So that's really kind of broken a lot of blocks that I've had before. And also kind of everything has been a real trial and error, so it's learning that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to fail, as long as you kind of keep moving forward in that and sometimes it's okay to cry and break down and have someone there to love you and support you and accept that love. Mm-hmm. And as far as the spiritual level, like that's just kind of a given to me with TM and with just this island and the water and just everybody's kindness and their love. What I've noticed here is that people are actually living their lives the way they talk about it. And that's something that I've read about or I've seen videos of people doing that, but to actually meet them in person was another level. And sometimes I would just sit there and think, like, is this really my life, and is this really happening, and are these people real? You know, are they really in front of me right now? And they are, and I had to accept that my life has changed in a very big way, and I have no choice but to change with it. And especially since now I'm kind of in full alignment with my journey.
And peak experience on the
peak experience. Sheesh. That's a tough one, just because I feel like it's still going. It's still happening. Like the peak. There's always a peak. I guess it's the other part of it. It's like I'm realizing that everything that I'm doing, and it could be cleaning these tools. It's kind of just peak because I'm right here doing it. You know, I'm not thinking about how shiny these tools get. No, I'm making them shiny. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's kind of that whole mentality, I guess, is what I've gotten here for the peak experience. Is like every moment I'm doing it to the best that I can.
What about So people that have influenced you that you've met.
People that have influenced me. Well, I've met a lot of people who've kind of like shifted me in general. Like I don't know. Like everybody here is kind of magical in their own way. Like everybody here they have what they're passionate about, and they have they know what they're doing, even if they don't. You know what I mean? And so like for me, I don't know. I find them all like I'm taking bits and bits from all of them, you know, and creating this whole idea of the type of person that I want to be and how I want to implement those qualities that each of them have into my life. So I find it all like super inspirational and honestly, Lonnie, like I'm not even trying to like joke, but I find you very inspirational because you keep going. Like you just have these ideas and then you're like, let's do that, and then we do it, and then we're meeting these people and it's just like seeing you just kind of go and do it, and it's kind of like okay all right, let's go. You know, let's do this, and it's kind of like inspiring just to know that people are out there to do that. Yeah. To, you know, you're kind of moving the flow. You're like, and that's what we need. Yeah. Is the movement. So.
Yeah, okay. You want to tell the little magic bus story?
Oh yeah. Okay, so we took a week-long trip, and we had 2 vans, but I like to imagine that they were buses. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Magic School Bus, but I felt that way. I felt like every time we would get off of the bus, we were in like a new world, you know. And we met a man named Chris, and he has this huge, what is it called, like food forest. But he knew everything, and he was just so like very theatrical, and to me it reminded me of like a wizard, like a forest wizard. And then like we went to go see these 2 beautiful, amazing people, Geoff and Lynn, and they had this beautiful garden, like beautiful and sufficient, and all kinds of like sustainable. It was a homestead actually, and they built all of that on lava. So to me that was like, they were fairies, like land fairies that just like made magic happen and made things bloom where no life could be before. And so I just felt like every person that we met kind of had this special power, this special magic, and we were entering in their world, and it amazes me to think that all of these worlds are all in one place, like on our earth, you know, like, and on an island, you know. So it's just like powerful to me to see like the drastic transformations that we can have on the world around us with just whatever we put our heart into. And so that's kind of really been a really like sacred thing that I've learned.
Okay, so here we are at Heartwood Works with Hap, learning a little woodworking. So you guys tell me a little bit about what's been transformational for you about this program. Jenna, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Besides everything being transformational, I had mentioned that yesterday in our little meeting. Sorry, I get really nervous on video.
Good. Just like.
So starting from just learning a new way to engage myself and in my mind and learning, the hands-on aspect of being here in general has been transformational. Getting information, taking it in, digesting it, not just the knowledge, not just the words, but also the experience, and taking all of that in and learning how to use that and apply it like immediately. We've all gotten to do a lot of that. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing was meeting the people who demonstrate such a profound respect. And just, I've been looking for role models. That's why I came out here, to be a role model with Lonnie. And just John Keawe, Hope, who was it, Noe, and the whole list of people have just been these amazing role models, you know, in this really deep tradition of Hawaiian culture. And it makes me even want to go spend time with my family and uncover where I come from and learn what my parents' backgrounds are. And just because there's so much knowledge in this tradition. And that's what I've been so appreciative of, seeing these role models and seeing this incredible spirit and community That's the biggest thing for me.
Okay. So going forward, how's this going to affect your life going forward?
Well, so far I was planning on going to the continental United States in February, but I think I'll be staying here because we've got a lot of projects happening from a very sustainable standpoint. We're building a business for creative expression. So Hap and I are working together to do that, which has been very exciting, and also like an engagement with the community. So we've learned a lot about the community and their traditions and their culture, and it's the aloha here is very real. The love and respect for humanity and one another. You experience that as soon as you walk into a room. Everyone wants to like hug you and give you love and know about you and serve you in any way. So we're being able to give back to the community. So from this point on, we're just gonna live the aloha, and when we go back home, maybe bring that home. I think we're gonna go home different people, and that could be a challenge for us because it's gonna be we're in a bubble now. We're in a beautiful bubble of love, and we're gonna go back and try to like bring that back with us as well as we can by just engaging the community and how we can support each other and really be a sustainable community for the world and like build on that.
And Jenna, you mentioned that you've gotten to do some things that had been on your list.
Everything on my on my list. Oh gosh, I don't even know where to start because everything's a dream. Shoot, what do we got? I'm going to be working with Hap. We're going to build a solar outdoor shower, which is kind of amazing. Building a business, just building a space where people can because I think that creativity is being pushed down and not used in the schools and in life. And I think that if we engage the community and being able to have the space to create and express, what we're here to express, and then be part of this big puzzle where all of us actually are authentically living our truths, we can create that.
Peak experiences or peak people that you've met?
Ooh, everybody, every single person that lives off of their land and they say these things that they want to do and they're actually living them. It's not just oh, this sounds good, one day I'll do it. They're actually doing it and they're flourishing, and there's happiness. And so we've got Bamboo Bobby Grimes, who's just amazing, and he's got so much more ahead of him. Hap, who's been working all of his life building for people to make a living, and now he wants to share his experiences, and he's actually doing those things. That was just every beach. What is the name of the Voyaging ship?
Makali'i.
Makali'i. That was one of the most transformative days for me because these people learned from a very wise master, and then they put their wisdom and their love, energy, their mana into everything that they build, and they evolve with technology on creating these new ships. And they taught us that the ocean is not just an expansive separator. The ocean is something that connects us, because you think about where the Polynesian came from and came to the island, and how we can stay connected through this big vast ocean instead of being separated by it. So.
Andrew, peak experiences?
Peak people, I would say John Keawe. Bamboo Bobby is amazing. He was talking about, he's basically going to have this facility, a compost facility, where he's going to use biodynamic preps and minerals to make the most powerful soil fertility in the world, or that I've ever heard of. And he's talking about taking the most crappy milk in schools that's just loaded with sugar and just really, really bad stuff. It's how about we make the highest quality dairy milk, and we put turmeric and ginger and black pepper in it and make it this medicinal, extremely potent milk. And so now kids are drinking from junk food to medicine. And then Geoff and Lynn have the most beautiful landscape I've ever seen, the most beautiful forest garden and vegetable garden. Just the whole property it's just the most beautiful. You can just feel the livingness of the air. Just like Pololu Valley is another peak experience. Going down there, it's just alive. I just see the shimmering of the air in between the trees, and, the green ground cover, the sand dunes kind of flowing through, and the little all of that has been so amazing. And yeah, John Keawe, Hope, Noe was amazing to see. We went to Waipio Valley and we cleaned out the taro patch. That was incredible. I don't know. All of the Hawaiian elders, Jerry Konanui was amazing. It's been a long time, but he was an incredible person. Just this extremely beautiful example of the human potential for being respectful and being in tune with nature and tradition. And it's powerful. Thank you.
And Jenna, one more thing. You've
Yes.
told me, you said before that, like the kind of all the things you wanted to do are happening here.
Yeah.
And maybe you could that little, you've told me that speech a couple times.
I know, and I'm
See
trying to
what-
think because everything is that right now.
Okay,
I'm
so
like,
go ahead. So
life right now.
something like, hey, there's all these things I've wanted to do, and they're just lining up for me out here.
it's,
That kind.
it's true. I mean,
you can just talk about serendipity and go ahead.
okay, yes. Okay, so the serendipity of almost exactly a year ago, I joined this program where I was going to create a set of workshops in which kids and students of all ages could learn different craft skills. Because when I was young, I didn't learn gardening, I didn't learn sewing, I didn't learn any of those things that I feel like are really important to take with you, hands-on skills, crafts, and I was going to create workshops for that. Well, it never happened because I moved to Fairfield and it just didn't happen. And here, like, we're literally getting to do exactly that, like build these workshops, and there's teachers that I'm meeting every single day now that are like, yeah, I would love to share my skill, my wisdom on a craft. And then I also have students, everyone I tell in the community about it, they're like, yes, I would love, there's no space here for that. And so that's all coming together. When I was in China, I noticed that the artistic culture was non-existent because they're so focused on the schoolwork to get a good job, to take care of their families. And if they had the opportunity to have the space to really express who they are and not what they're supposed to be doing, like artist versus robot, that's where the whole dream came from. And all of that is aligning here, as well as just the environment. You've got palm trees everywhere. You've got the beautiful jungle. If you get to like pan around, it's just everything is exactly what I wanted it to be. I mean, there's so much more, but it's just all life now. And like the community of people, love, like all love. I have so much love to give all the time, and everyone here is receptive of it. And there's support, and everything is possible, and people believe that anything is possible, and they're living that. And those are the dreams that I have, is to like really let people know anything is possible. You just have to believe it and have the support. Surround yourself, take responsibility for everything that you're doing, and then it all just unfolds for you. And that's how life works.
Any closing things?
Finishing comment, yeah. One of the lectures that we listened to very recently in the car inspired me. Talked about stories, how the stories that we tell ourselves, or this is social, that's put onto us, shapes how we behave. And it inspired me. And I looked at kind of all of my skills, and I feel like I'm a writer. I love cooking. I love storytelling, actually. A lot of video games I've played, I love the stories. And so it's inspired me to continue this thought. One of my best friends loves telling stories and loves video games. And so I almost want to open like a restaurant with medicinal quality, little potions, little like video game style potions, medicinal food. And then the venue would be like Friday night stories. And this is another way to inspire basically the social change that I'm looking for. It's a way to take all of this knowledge and teach, because I feel like I'm an educator, so I can teach in a way that people will receive it and be inspired rather than just a lecture.
Have you started to see kind of the outlines of a new story for how to be and do on the earth since you've been here?
Taking permaculture in Fairfield kind of opened a lot, and then here it's just a whole new level. I spent a summer in Viroqua, just before coming here, also showing me how the community can be so strong and how people can work together and really have that camaraderie and placemaking, taking responsibility for who they are and what they're doing in their environment. And this is just a whole new another iteration, another level. And now it's steeped in this 5,000 or however old culture that's just extremely powerful.
And we'll close with Chris playing a little song that he learned from John Keawe. Whoops. Okay, so we'll end there. Thank you very much. It's been a long discussion, but for those of you who are going to be working with me on this in the future, I think this will help give you some perspective. And for those of you who might be interested in coming on the program, this gives you a little more detail about what we're all about. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you in Hawaii. Aloha.